Netanyahu is a problem. He has to go. The replacement will be better in few aspects, but will not change anything in the basic core issues like continuing the war, continuing the apartheid, and continuing the occupation. The war will continue with Netanyahu and without. As long as Hamas is there is at least someone to govern Gaza. Clear about it. I'm very much in favor of the two-state solution. Two peoples are struggling over one piece of land. You have to share the land. I mean, we are facing now two alternatives. Either apartheid forever or democracy. Now, the first stage should be stop talking about the two-state solution and realizing it's not achievable anymore. Because by continuing to speak about it, we just postpone the end of the occupation.
Hello and welcome to another episode of India and Global Left. If you are new to our shows, do hit that subscribe button. You can donate in the link given in the description box. Be a YouTube member by hitting the join button or be a Patreon by following the link. That helps us sustain ourselves. But the easiest thing you can do is to watch our shows, hit like, share, and comment. Without further ado, let me welcome our guest today, Gideon Levy. Gideon is an Israeli journalist and author. He writes opinion pieces and weekly column for newspaper Haaretz that often focuses on Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories. Gideon is also well known for his 2010 book, The Punishment of Gaza. His latest book is titled The Killing of Gaza, Reports on a Catastrophe. Gideon Levy, welcome to India and Global Left.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
I want to start with a quick update on northern Gaza because as the world is focusing on Lebanon and a potential Israeli attack on Iran, Israel has intensified its ethnic cleansing campaign in northern Gaza in what Palestine's UN envoy has called genocide within genocide. An Al Jazeera report has said that 400,000 Palestinians are now trapped in northern Gaza, with the Israeli military not allowing anyone to leave the area despite issuing an evacuation order. Can you update us on what's going on in northern Gaza?
Yes, Israel, I think, is using the fact that the full attention, the global attention is at the northern front with Lebanon and at what might happen in Iran. And it's now implementing its original plan to make the northern part of Gaza empty from Palestinians. Israel does not admit it, it denies it. But it's very clear that that's the purpose, that's the goal. I'm not sure it's achievable, but that's the goal. And now, when we are speaking, Israel is doing anything possible to transfer, to remove the people, hundreds of thousands, into the south. Until now, most of them reject. How much violence will Israel use for this? I don't know. It might turn into a horrible bloodbath, but we have to see what will be in the coming days.
You talk about the official strategy of freeing Gaza from Hamas, and you said that that's perhaps not possible. Do you think, in your assessment, the Israeli officials know this? Because there are other commentators who say that Israelis or Israeli officials know that this is an impossible task. What they are trying to achieve is to change their strategy, the erstwhile strategy of militarily occupying Gaza and allowing the civilians to just sustain with its bare minimum calorie, to now renewed or the new strategy of making Gaza unlivable. What do you think is the actual Israeli official strategy in Gaza?
First of all, it's not declared, I say again. I think Israel understands that it cannot evacuate 2.3 million people from the Gaza. So this is out of the question. The extreme right-wingers want more than this. They want to settle in northern Gaza, to resettle, like before the evacuation of 2005. And this might happen. But for this, you have, first of all, to go through the ethnic cleansing of the northern part. And this might be right now what is happening. And the world has no interest now in it. The United States for sure not. And under this cover, Israel will try. I'm not sure it will succeed. But I don't think that anyone in Israel thinks seriously that it's possible to evacuate 2 million people from Gaza. This will not happen, and I think most of the Israelis realize this.
I want to ask you about what's going on in Lebanon. It has been reported and analyzed that one of the reasons why Israel escalated in Lebanon was to delink Hezbollah from Iran. It is also said in the same vein that it is to delink Hezbollah support from Hamas. And the third thing that is said is that the public sentiment for war has to be kept up by continuously expanding the war. And there are reports now that say that in Israel, the war sentiment has risen ever since the escalation and killing of Hamas and Hezbollah leadership. Can you tell us the reason why Israel escalated in Lebanon?
Look, the last year was not simple with Lebanon because 60,000 Israelis were evacuated from their homes. And they are not ready to get back to their homes without having any guarantee that Hezbollah will be far away. So there is some justification. The thing is that I truly believe that this can be achieved by an agreement. But Israel does not believe in agreements. Israel wants to do it by force. And that's so tragic because doing it by force can complicate us in a regional war, which we are very close already. So the justification to distance Hezbollah from the border can be understood. The means are unacceptable because meanwhile Israel is destructing and killing and repeating the same methods like it did in Gaza, now in southern Lebanon, and it can get farther into central Lebanon and North Lebanon. Who knows what will stop Israel?
What makes the Israeli officials so confident about Lebanon? I'm asking this question because, unlike Gaza, Israeli officials must be knowing that Lebanon is a graveyard for itself, given its experience in 2006, regardless of whether one agrees or whatever is one's estimate of who won the war in 2006. It's very clear that it was kind of a stalemate, and Israel got a lesson that it cannot achieve dismantling of Hezbollah by force. What makes them so confident at this moment?
Israel does not learn from its own experience again and again. For most of Israelis, and for sure for the Israeli government, only living on the sword is the only option for Israel to survive. And one time after the other, this strategy fails, and living on the sword brings us to nowhere. And even very crucial victories in the battlefield don't bring us to more security, to more justice, to more peace, to more prosperity, to nothing. And still Israel repeats the same mistakes because something in the mindset is wrong. And this thing is that Israel does not believe in any kind of agreements with the Arabs. Would it be Palestinians or would it be Lebanese? And therefore it repeats the same mistake in the same places, one time after the other. You know, like a gambler who always thinks that the next hit will be the good one. The next war will be the successful one. It won't.
Can you tell us a little bit about the public sentiment? We have interviewed many analysts on this conflict, but most of them are uh, uh, either Americans or Europeans or Middle Easterns. But you are currently in Israel. Can you talk a little bit about the public sentiment about the war?
In Israel, in all the wars until now, there was always support to the war in its beginning. Getting united, facing a danger, justifying any war, believing that we are struggling over our existence, over our survival. This is always in the first stages. And then in all the wars came the cracks. All of a sudden you get complicated, all of a sudden you pay an unbearable price, all of a sudden people are being killed for nothing, all of a sudden you ask yourself, what did you achieve? All of a sudden you ask yourself, where are you aiming to? This war is different. This time it's over 1 year after the war, and there are no doubts, no questions. And this is all due to the 7th of October. The atrocities of the 7th of October convinced almost all Israelis, left, religious or secular. They truly believe that after the 7th of October, the country has the right to do whatever it wants. They lost any belief in peace. They lost any belief in humanity. Tell them about thousands of killed children in Gaza. They wouldn't care less. Tell them about the destruction, this unbelievable destruction in Gaza. They wouldn't care less. Israel changed this year because of the 7th, or using the 7th as an excuse. But in any case, the outcome is fatal. Israel is now supporting this war from wall to wall. You hear a lot about protests in Israel, and there are protests in Israel, but they are all aimed at the prime minister and at the goal of returning the hostages. Nothing about the crimes of war, nothing about the terrible suffer of the Palestinians. And now starts the suffer of the Lebanese. And there's no room for this in Israeli society or in Israel discourse those days. The Israeli discourse is right now militaristic, fascistic, many times religious, like never before.
You just spoke about the unanimous war support. I want to ask you about this narrative often peddled, including in the New York Times and generally speaking, the liberal Western circles, that it's Netanyahu which is the problem. If he is somehow replaced by others, I'm thinking about Benny Gantz or others, things might change. Could you tell us a little bit about who are the alternatives, and do you even think that any change in government through an election can potentially stop this war?
Unfortunately, no. With a capital N, not. Netanyahu is a problem. He has to go. The replacement will be better in few aspects, but will not change anything in the basic core issues like continuing the war, continuing the apartheid, and continuing the occupation. The war will continue with Netanyahu and without. None of the candidates had ever spoken about putting an end to the war, opening Gaza to the world, lifting the siege, starting negotiations with the Palestinians over a Palestinian state or a one-state solution. Nothing of this. And therefore, I am not part of the protest in Israel which calls for the resignation of Netanyahu, as if after Netanyahu the Messiah will come. Or after Netanyahu there will be hope for Israel, for peace, for justice. Not at all. The other candidates, almost all of them think the same. They support the occupation. They support continuing the war. They might have got a hostage deal before Netanyahu, but that's not everything. With all due respect to the hostages, and it's a huge issue, but that's not everything. We have 42,000 killed people in Gaza. We have now Lebanon collapsing. We have Iran at our door, at our step door. In all those issues, nothing will change.
I think this is a good moment to ask you a little bit about Iran-Israel relationship. In the last 1 year, Israel has constantly provoked Iran, has done everything for Iran to retaliate. New Israeli tax authority estimates found that the recent Iranian retaliation of 150 to 180 to 200 missiles cost Israel about 50 million US dollar. My question to you is, what makes Israel so confident about taking on Iran? And tied to this question is the question about American support. It has been often said that the greatest Israeli success is not a startup nation or high tech or even achieving 44,000 per capita US dollar economy. It is winning US bipartisan support. Of course, recent estimates by Brown University about U.S. aid says that U.S. aid of 18 billion is unprecedented in history, which has been hovering around 4 billion US dollar for a very long time. Talk about what, in your assessment, what makes the Israelis believe that the American support to Israel in its misadventure against Iran will continue?
Only the experience, and the experience is very clear. There was almost no American administration which dared to condition, not to stop the aid to Israel, to condition it in certain conditions. None. The rhetoric is always there. They are calling for two-state solution. They are calling to stop the war. They are calling to lift the humanitarian aid into Gaza. All the right things. But they seem not to do anything, and Israel learned to ignore it. I'll give you an example. Israel was really warned not to invade Rafah by the Americans. They were very clear about it. Israel just invaded Rafah and nothing happened. What should Israel's lesson be? And this is by Biden, who sounds so understanding the Palestinians suffer. What's more, and who's more than Barack Obama, whose heart was for sure in the right place, who compared the suffer of the Palestinians to the suffer of the black slavery. And Barack Obama sent more aid to Israel than any other American president in an unconditioned way. So experience teaches Israel that it can just ignore the United States. Do I have a full comprehensive explanation for this? No. It's not rational. But it's happening. And many times you don't know which of the two is the real superpower, Israel or the United States. How can it be that American taxpayers are investing so much in a state which totally ignores the American interest? I don't have a rational answer to it. You asked also about Iran. With Iran, Israel is at least used to be cautious, but the last military successes for Israel, or what seems to be military successes, like the Pages operation, like the assassinations, brought Israel a bit to a situation of hubris, And Israel really believes that it can do anything. The passiveness of the international community just makes it stronger. We can do whatever we want. We are the only one here. And this might push Israel into an adventure with Iran, which might succeed, but might also fail. And then it will be catastrophe, not only for Israel, but for the entire region.
I asked you this question given there are multiple reports that talk about shift in US public opinion against Israel, even including new generation of the Jewish community. This is said to be a massive change if one is to consider the Jewish sentiment in particular in the 1980s. Is there any fear in Israel, or in at least in some circles, that if Israel continues to behave the way it has, the deepening and widening of what has been called as the international consensus on the Palestine question can eventually affect the US, and it might also withdraw its support from Israel?
You mean the public opinions?
Yes, the public opinion in the US is
Sure.
massively has shifted against Israel.
Sure. Not for the short run, definitely for the long run. For the short run, you see it all over the world. There is a huge gap between public opinion, civil societies, and governments. You see it in Europe, and now you see it in the United States even more so. But somehow it is still a huge gap between the administration and the public opinion. But those students who are protesting in Columbia, in Harvard, in Berkeley, in other universities, are the tomorrow's administration of the United States. They will not forget what's happening now. For them, Israel is the mass killer of Gaza. And when they will become the big decision makers, all those sentiments that the Joe Bidens carried out Israel will be gone. And instead of this, there will be a deep sentiment of being quite disgusted by Israel, by what it had done in the recent years. To this, you have to add another element, the separationists. America keep on repeating, and this will come from the right wingers, not from the left wingers, not from the progressives. Israel, the United States has this tendency now for many years to stop being involved in all over the world and to take care only in the United States and let the entire world bleed. This might also change American policy. But the thing is that in America, changing policy is very slow and very gradual. So it will take another generation until it will be a real change. It will not happen in one day, but it's on its way, yes.
I want to take a step back now and to ask you about some of the more broader questions regarding the way forward. You have said that Gaza without Hamas would be a Somalia. What exactly do you mean? And what's your vision or idea about a just resolution of this conflict? Because there are so many questions which are very difficult if one is to imagine whether it's pre-67 border, whether it's one state, whether the question of the right of return or the refugee question. What's your overall vision of ending the occupation and apartheid and settler colonialism?
First of all, you ask many questions in one question. I mean, it's not one question. It's many questions you're including here. First of all, about Gaza. You asked about Gaza turning into Somalia. It's very simple. If Hamas will be really crushed, which is not the case until now, politically for sure not. Military, yes, but that's very temporary. Politically, it's not crushed at all. But let's say it will be crushed. Who is going to replace Hamas? Who is going to govern Gaza? There is no one. Israel is even not ready that the PA will take over, but the PA, I'm not sure, is capable of governing Gaza. PA is not such a strong and efficient body right now. It also has its own problems, big, huge problems of leadership, of corruption, of many things. So if there will be no leadership, no government, it will turn into anarchy. And we see already the first signs. All kinds of families will take over. There will not be any authority in Gaza. And then it will turn into an anarchy, like Somalia, with a lot of crime, with, by the way, having no partner to deal even about daily life. Humanitarian aid, to whom will you supply it if there is no government and no governor and nothing? Who is going to take the supply? Who is going to distribute? So this danger is very acute, very, very close. As long as Hamas is there, there is at least someone to govern Gaza. It's not my cup of tea, Hamas, by all means not. But do we have an alternative? Do the Palestinians have an alternative? I wish they have. Anyone will be better for the Palestinians than Hamas. But I don't see no one around. I don't see Israel enabling this. Now, opening up now the focus over an overall solution, I'm very clear about it. I'm very much in favor of the two-state solution. Two peoples are struggling over one piece of land. You have to share the land. Two peoples are dreaming about self-determination. The Jews deserve it, the Palestinians deserve it equally. The only solution is having two states, one Jewish state, one Palestinian state. The only problem is that Israel did anything possible to sabotage it and succeeded. We are facing today over 700,000 Jewish settlers in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. They are the most powerful political group in Israel. They are, part of them, very violent people. There is no one who will ever be able to evacuate them from the West Bank. Without their evacuation, there is no viable Palestinian state. There is a Bantustan, maybe, in a good case, but not more than this. So after many years of supporting the two-state solution, I realized that it's just not achievable. Why to continue to support something which will never be achievable anymore? The train left the station, finished. The problem is that the whole world is still sticking to it, knowing that it will never happen. And continuing to speak about it, including your country and the United States and the EU and the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli left and the UN, you name it. Very nice. But not achieved. What will you do with 700,000 settlers? They will not go anywhere and you cannot evacuate them by force. There's no one to do so. So this brings me to the other alternative, the only other alternative. We are living in a one state ever since the year of 1967. Between the river and the sea, between the Jordan and the Mediterranean, there are today around 7.5 million Palestinians, 7.5 million Jews. Part of them are living under a democracy, mainly the Jews. Part of them are living under one of the most brutal tyrannies in the world, the Israeli military occupation. The challenge is only to change the regime. There is a one state. You just have to turn it into a democracy for everybody. One person, one vote. What is more just than this? Yes, it will not be a Jewish state. It will also not be a Palestinian state. It will be a democracy. And for me, living in democracy is more important than being a Jewish state or Palestinian state. The two communities can define themselves without calling themselves a Jewish state or a Palestinian state. There is no other choice. I mean, we are facing now two alternatives, either apartheid forever or democracy. I don't see a third way.
It is true that within the system of international nation states, most nation states and diplomats are still talking within the framework of two states. Although, as you'd know, but for our viewers, that within the activist circle, people are increasingly now talking more and more about the one state, as you just explained. Gideon, if I could just ask you about this difficult question of how to get to the one state, because that's the most difficult thing to imagine, even when it is most desirable. I mean, one of the things that immediately comes to my mind is that there has to be some shift in U.S. Position vis-a-vis Israel, forcing Israel towards international rule of law. But if these two people, the Arab and the Jews, so culturally separated because of what has happened in the last 70 years, not historically. When I said cultural separation, I'm aware that that's a total myth. What is needed for reconciliation at cultural level, at political level, and at perhaps international level?
It will be a long and painful process, no doubt about it. But unlikely the destructive process that we are in the last 50, 60 years, here there is some kind of light in the end of the tunnel. While if we continue to live from war to war, from killing to killing, from destruction to destruction, from massacre to massacre, there is no light whatsoever. Now, the first stage should be stop talking about the two-state solution and realizing it's not achievable anymore. Because by continuing to speak about it, we just postpone the end of the occupation. We play into the hands of the occupation. Because, you know, on the shelf, there is a solution. We will use it one day. Meanwhile, it is on the shelf. And I say, no, it's not there. Stop looking at the shelf and hoping that one day you can use it. You can't use it anymore. Too late. Now, the idea of one state, I came after a few visits in South Africa, after apartheid. And I know all the problems of South Africa, and still, South Africa is today a more just place than it was before the end of apartheid. No doubt about this. Would we meet in the late 80s? You wouldn't believe that this would be possible. So many words were used about the bloodbath, the massacre of all the whites. It will never work. It did work. There was no bloodbath. There are many problems, but it did work. The unthinkable was achieved. You cannot judge the future only according to the parameters of the present. Yes, in the present, how will Palestinians and Jews live together? How will they govern together? How will they go to the army together? How will they have the same immigration policy? Many, many huge questions. But you have to start with something. And this something is the vision. If you have something which has a chance, now you can start to work toward it. The Americans will be the last one here. Because for them it's really against all their beliefs. and interest. They want a very strong pro-American state here, an outpost of the West, of the white ones, of the liberal ones, vis-a-vis the dark ones, like South Africa was. Also, South Africa was presented as a Western outpost against all those blacks. It's a very long process. It needs, first of all, some leaders who will start to change their discourse, courage. In the Palestinian people, you see more and more voices in favor of the one-state solution. In Israel, not whatsoever. But there must come a moment in which Israel will be forced to decide. Either you are a democracy and you are accepted to the family of humankind, to the family of peoples in the world, or you are an apartheid state, and then the world will treat you like it did treat South Africa, with all the consequences. So to tell you that I have a formula how to do it in short time, no. But at least you have something in your mind. Would you believe that France and Germany will be the best allies just after the World War II? Would you believe that Germany will be the best ally of Israel in Europe after the Holocaust? Things are changing. And things might change also here.
Finally, can I ask you about voices of dissidents within Israel? I'm asking this not just because I want to ask you on a personal note whether you feel insecure, whether it's from the legal official apparatus or non-state Zionist actors, but also because if given you have spoken about the vision of one state, which we all think is the fairest idea at this moment in history, um, uh, and given it's a 50-50% in terms of population, it's hard to think about this transformation without at least some dissidents in Israel who think like you. Can you give us an estimate about what's the population of people who think like you, who believe in the one state, and are there any organized groups who are in support with that vision?
First of all, they are very, very few and marginal and illegitimate. It's not legitimate because you question Zionism. You question the right of the Jewish people for a Jewish state. And if there were few, the 7th of October killed them all. Not physically, obviously, but so in general terms, there is no left in Israel. We don't face any peace camp today. There are individuals, sure they are. There are some very brave groups, but they are tiny. Their voice is not being heard and their voice is not legitimate. So right now it's the worst time because what's going on. But many times, as we say, the darkest part of the night is the one before dawn. We are now in the darkest part of the night of Israel. Maybe out of this darkness, something new will emerge. Not that I can tell you how will it happen. Not that I have a scenario for sure, not that I have a guarantee, by all means not. But it cannot get much worse than it is now in Israel. Right now, answering your question, it's nothing. It's the margin of the margin who shares those views. Really the margin of the margin. And more so after the 7th of October. We can only hope.
On that note of optimism, Gideon Levy, thank you so much for your time. It was such a pleasure having you on.
Thank you very much for having me. Seriously, very, very good questions and pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks a lot.
Hi, my name is Ayushman. I, along with Jyotisman, have started this platform. In the last 2 years, We have tried to build content for the left and progressive forces. We have interviewed economists, historians, political commentators, and activists so far. If you have liked our content so far and want us to build an archive for the left, I have two requests for you. Please do consider donating for the cause. Link is in the description below. Also, if you are not able to do so, don't feel sad. You can always like our videos and share our videos to your comrades. Finally, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.